live in Calgary, but I am hiding out, as I said earlier, for some of you that heard, down in Waterton Lakes National Park, which is in the Rocky Mountains. And if you know kind of where Banff is, and then you were going to drive like 3 hours south to where BC, Alberta, and Montana all like nest together, you'd be where I am. Tiny, tiny little park. So, you know, the end of the road. We like it. So welcome. We're not going to do the little blurb at the beginning because I find those introductions painful. And I figure you will know really quickly whether I know what I'm talking about or not. And that's really all that matters when it comes down to this. So because I never know kind of the group that I'm going to get, and I knew it was going to be a room I could interact with versus say 1,000 people, the way I'm approaching tonight is a conversation as billed in the little blurb that went out. We're not going to get this time back. Okay. The time that you're spending here with me tonight, we are never, you, I, nobody else, we're not getting it back. So let's spend it wisely. And to that end, you're here, which means you have some interest, I hope, in the topic of imposter syndrome. So what I want to hear from you right now is, why are you here? So you can hit me up in the chat. Love to see my face. Oh, yeah, I thought you were talking about me, Emery. I'm like, my face is on. What are you talking about? My face is like an overdrive over here. So why are you here? If you want to jump on and just take the microphone, how do you want to do this, Emery? Do you want them to put their hands up, or do you just want them to dive in?
I think they can put it in the chat if they're comfortable. They can put their hands up and I can help you choose.
Okay, help me choose. Ooh. Anybody want to tell me? You gotta help me out here, guys. So what is interesting to you about imposter syndrome? We've got to, okay, Manjari, there we go. Let's hear it.
So I personally feel like, you know, everybody these days tends to get very intimidated, especially at workplaces when you do meet people who have, you know, either accomplished something or, you know, they do come from a background or have had that kind of exposure, which whatever, for XYZ reasons, we haven't had. So, you know, so one of the reasons why I am here is it's really about, I personally feel that in general, women are not able to articulate their strengths in, you know, in the most optimum manner. And, you know, another thing is, you know, the whole idea of having like these self-defeating thoughts, because many a times I do, you know, realize that, for example, I do see that with a lot of my girlfriends as well, that they do tend to self-reject themselves even before trying for something. So, you know, my objective is primarily to, you know, understand how to navigate that feeling, you know, and how to make sure that you're able to turn it around in the most positive manner. Yeah.
Well, I've got good news for you. You're in the right place. So stick around. You've said a lot there, a lot of important things that we are going to come back to. Anybody else want to throw their hat in the ring? Amy, let's hear from you.
Yeah, I am interested in it because I have been not stuck. I've been thinking about and planning making a bit of a career shift in the last couple of years. And I thought, oh God, I don't know how to do that. But I actually do know how to do that. But I think it's the fear of people thinking, well, she's not qualified to do that. But actually what I've been doing for the last 15 years ties in so nicely. But when you don't have a particular title, I think sometimes you can think, oh God, am I able to do that, even though I know that I am? So that's just something that's kind of on my mind.
All right. And if we don't get to that in our conversation here, either remind me at the end or drop me a line, because you're talking about something specific to do with your resume and your CV. There's some things you can do around that to make it clearer to yourself and to other people where you shine.
I'm self-employed though, and they would be both self-employment. So in terms of resume, people wouldn't really be looking at it that much. But yeah, that definitely tips and tricks on it. That'd be great.
Perfect. Anybody else want to throw their hat in the ring? Okay. All right. Lindsay Kilpatrick, we'll go with you first.
Sure. One thing I'm interested in is how to, I guess, self-identify the difference between imposter syndrome versus legitimately needing more training on a particular area, or you know, legitimately recognizing a deficit in your experience maybe.
All right, fantastic, thank you. And Kim, you had your hand up. Do you still have your hand up?
Sure. I am not working presently. My last role was in management, program management, and my imposter syndrome was so highlighted. I actually quit the job.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So I'm in a position right now where I'm actually scared to apply for another role at that level because I did such a number on myself. So that's why I'm here. I just kind of want to hear this discussion.
All right. Well, thank you. And you know what, Kim? You're normal. That's really going to be the big takeaway tonight, is that this is normal. And women are suffering in silence because they think that it's just them, that everybody else has got their shit together. And by the way, I'm a swearer, I warn you now, that everybody's got their shit together. And the truth is, all of us, men and women, although more statistically women, are running around going, I have no clue. Like, I just, you know, I think I do, and then I think I don't, and then what if this, and what if that? So you're normal. I want you to hear that, okay?
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else before we jump in?
There are a couple people in the chat as well.
I'm seeing that. Okay, so Emily Cairncross, let's hear from you. And I hope I said it right.
You did. Hello. Hi.
Hello.
Well, I'm here today, first of all, because I think Facebook is listening in on my conversations, because I was literally just having a conversation right before seeing this event to sign up for it about I think I'm getting imposter syndrome. In any case, I'm here because I recently went through a promotion process. Yep. So I'm going into a new position, taking over a new team, and several people on the team are people that I know quite well and have more experience than me. And so I'm having this moment of deer in headlights. Holy shit, can I do this? Will I know what I'm talking about? Will they think that I know what I'm talking about, or will they totally see through me? So yeah, I really respect the people that will be reporting to me. And I'm just, I'm having all these feelings about it. And my husband does the same job as me, has gone through the same experience at the same level. And didn't show any of these things. And so, yeah, I just want to hear more about it.
Which makes him normal as well, just for the record. Anybody else? Agnes, I saw your hand up at one point. Is it still up or not?
Yeah, I actually, what Kim was saying, that really resonated with me. So I recently finished my PhD, and it was a very long degree. And my girlfriends and I, we had lots and lots of discussions about this, because all of us had so many, it's very difficult to work on a project that you're the only one working on, and there's no benchmark to compare against. And it's the idea of what is everyone else doing, and how do you compare to that? And so when I saw this, I was like, I'm very curious, kind of what goes on in other fields as well, because this was very kind of grad school specific. And I know this is going to extend out everywhere else. So I was just really curious to hear what everyone else is kind of talking about with regards to this.
Okay, fair enough. I will tell you that I talk to CEOs, I talk to people all over the world, I talk to working entrepreneurs, moms. This is the same thing. The levels, the demographics, the geographies, it's the same thing. And COVID has really given me an opportunity to dig into that and just to actually see it in real time kind of thing, and hear the words from women all over the world. And it's, we're at a moment where we can choose a different path forward, but we can only choose it together. We can't choose it individually, because when we're individual, we just don't have the impact. It's that simple. So let's see over here. NDST. Gap in my career. I've been putting off starting out and second guessing myself as to whether I can even do this, or even deserving of the fees I intend to charge, for example, or am I just afraid to fail? So one of the things we're going to get into is the stories we tell ourselves, right? And what I'm hearing a little bit over there is you're grappling with which story you want to tell yourself and which story you want to believe. And that's something we all have to kind of deal with. So let me see, am I missing? Okay, so we've already started covering stuff, so that's fantastic. But let's get clear on what is imposter syndrome, okay? So it comes from a research paper that was published in 1978. There were a couple of university or college counselors who, in talking to women, found that there were these patterns. They were hearing the same sorts of things over and over again. So they thought, well, here's an interesting sort of study, and they named it Imposter Phenomenon. And it's been kind of changed over to imposter syndrome in kind of the common language. I prefer phenomenon only because syndrome kind of makes it sound like it's medical or mental health related, like a disease or something, and it's not that, okay? It's just a grouping of experiences that are together, okay? So if I go back and forth between phenomenon and syndrome or whatever, I'm talking about the same thing, okay? So the studies that they did have been replicated over and over and over again, and the data still keeps coming out the same way. Now, the first thing I really want you to hear is that women have a wicked advantage when it comes to imposter syndrome. And I'm going to tell you what it is right now. So with men, when they have imposter syndrome or those feelings of doubt and not having the worth and things like that, what they do is they actually pull away from the hard thing, and they'll level down and make sure that they have people below them, either friends or colleagues, who are further that are further down, right? So that they can keep legitimizing their sort of position. That's their kind of their default of things, right? Women, we're what's called counterphobic, which is not afraid of a counter or afraid of math or any of those sorts of things. Counterphobic means when something is hard, we go towards it, not away from it. That is our default mode, right? And it might not be like great guns, I'm gonna like jump out of a plane sort of thing, but we're not daunted in the same way. We might feel the feelings, we might be thinking the thoughts, but we will still keep going. Now, whether that is an evolutionary trait that's come about through social evolution over thousands and thousands of years, we can speculate, but we can't know, right? But there's that tendency in women right away. And that women are also prone to taking in negatives and giving them precedence. Okay, so we have a bias towards negative, and men have a bias towards positive. So if you're in a feedback session, the man on average will hear the good and be like, yeah, the other stuff, and I'll get to it. Women will go, oh my God, I'm a failure. I can do nothing right. And my life is over, or some variation of that along the way, right? So we've got a couple of different things going on that already put us both in a position of advantage and a position of potentially disadvantage. And that's that part we'll talk about. But I like to make the analogy of a fishbowl, okay? So the goldfish is in the goldfish bowl, being a little goldfish, doing his little goldfishy things, right? If you were to say to him, yo, how is the bowl working out for you? That goldfish, born and raised in the bowl, is gonna go, what bowl? What are you even talking about? Right? What are you talking about? Whereas if like anybody's seen Finding Nemo, and Nemo gets taken out of the ocean and then plonked into the dentist's tank, and they call him shark bait. And he's just like wigging out because he doesn't know what this is about. Think about the world of work, all right? The world of work, by and large, is a fishbowl. In fact, most of our society is a fishbowl. It's been created by certain cultures and certain beliefs and all those sorts of things, right? And the big piece of it is that it's men that have largely built all of our infrastructure. In fact, 90% of the leaders in the world, and this is across religions and companies and countries and all of that, 90% are men. So that's, you know, we're living in that space. So we're the wild ocean Nemo getting picked up and plonked into the goldfish bowl. Even if we've gone to school, even if we've practiced all the things, we're still in a foreign environment, right? So it's not like totally foreign, like we're pounding on the little glass walls wanting out. Some of us are, some of us have like jumped out of the fishbowl. But the point is, in one case, there's advantages, huge advantages that we don't even realize for one group of people. And there's really big disadvantages for another group of people. But again, we don't realize, right? So they call it a glass ceiling, but it's more like an invisible ceiling, because these are things floating around. These ideas and behaviors are floating around. We can't like touch them, but they're there and we run up against them all the time. So what I want to show you is, because I like demonstrations, we are going to have this here as my little catchment basin. Okay, so we're going to go with me here. Okay, don't look down my shirt. Okay, so here's what's going to happen. This is you. This little beaker here, that's you. All right. Now you're going to have an accomplishment. Now your accomplishment might be that you finished your PhD, and I hear you, man. That just about was the death of me. But or you got a promotion, or you stood up for yourself, or you told your mother-in-law off, or whatever it happens to be. Okay, so something good has happened. And here's what you do when you have imposter syndrome. There's two things you can do. This is the one I do. Okay, so this here's all the positive things that have just happened. Look at them all, right? This is you in here. We want the positive things to go in and be part of you, right? But oh, look, here's the, I don't believe this is me. This can't be me. This isn't really happening. I got to keep doing more. I got to get another degree. I gotta get promoted. I got to take another skills course. I gotta, right? Okay. So what do we end up with here? We end up with a sad little dribble. It is a sad little dribble in here. Okay. All that positive, there, look, it's like a little piddle pattern if you had like a dog or a cat that you were trying to train. Okay, so that's what I do. I just don't even let the good in. So I'm always trying for more. But because of this, the more doesn't cut it. Okay, so that's version 1. Then we have version 2. Okay, here we go. Another person, empty, ready for some positive experiences, right? So the positive starts to go in. Oh, look. But then they're like, oh no, but I don't deserve it. Oh no, oh look, there's some other crap I'm gonna put in there. Oh no, now look at it. Look at that, okay? So my son went out and got all kinds of stuff out of the yard for me, some green stuff. So this is all the stuff you're telling yourself, the stories about I'm not good enough, they won't believe me, they won't think that I know what I'm talking about, I shouldn't have gotten this job, I fooled everybody, right? And I know women that have been at the top of their job for like 30 years. I'm like, you know what? If you're fooling everybody, you deserve a bloody Academy Award, because seriously, either everybody around you is completely stupid or you are a magnificent actor. Which do you think it is? And then they go, oh, and then we have the conversation, right? So all this crap gets in there. So yeah, you had positive, but because you took and put all this other gunk in there, does it look or feel positive? No. And it's a cycle that keeps going on and on and on and on. So that's what happens when we're dealing with imposter syndrome or imposter phenomenon. We're either completely blocking the positive or we're mixing the positive up with a bunch of crap. Either way, we're getting in our own way, right? So does that make some sense when I explain it like that? So what is happening is we can have a whole series of experiences. And here's some of my favorites here. So high achieving. So I always got to have more. That's me. Denial of ability or attributing success to luck, mistake, overwork, or result of a relationship. Discounting praise. anybody here ever gone the, oh, no, just, no, I didn't really, that's not really my, it was my team. I'm a really good team, right? Well, maybe your team's got a really good boss, right? Or maybe they got a really good teammate and that's you, right? So what else have we got here? Fear of failure and being discovered as a fraud. That's another one I've dealt with. Not feeling intelligent, feeling like everybody else is smarter than you are. Everybody else seems to understand things and got things figured out, right? If you get them alone in a dark room in a corner, I'd be willing to bet you they'd be like, I don't know. Like, man, I'm making half this crap up all the time. So, but people are really good at that whole confidence piece. We'll come back to that. Difficulty internalizing feelings of success, overestimating others and underestimating yourself, and overworking or self-sabotage. So procrastination can be a big thing that comes up with high achieving, high performing women that are fighting imposter syndrome. Okay, because it's like, it'll never be good enough. That's where perfectionism can kick in. It'll never be good enough. I got to keep doing it till it's perfect, right? Only good employees do perfect things and don't make a mistake. And if I make a mistake, I'm going to get fired. Meanwhile, you can see people making mistakes all around you, but somehow you tell yourself it's different for you. It's okay that they made mistakes and somehow didn't get their asses fired. But if you make a mistake, the sky, in fact, will fall. So, again, it's the stories we're telling ourselves. So are there any other sorts of thoughts you can think of, which is kind of a bad sentence, but anything that I kind of missed or that you're like, hey, I tell myself this other thing all the time, like I can't lead. Who would follow me? Right? Anything else or? Oh, I guess I must have had a relatively thorough list. You can let me know if something pops up later, okay? So let's talk a bit about how brains work, because that's really important about what we're talking about here, okay? So there's a couple of big ideas around the brain, but what I want you to take in is every time we have an experience from the time before we're born, okay, our brain is forming neural pathways. It's making connections all the time, right? And when we're just tiny, they're all new connections. But as we grow older, our brains start to be predictive. They start to say, oh, this is like this, go over there. This is like that, go over that, go over there, right? So scientists estimate that 80% of our time, we are in unconscious mode. So that means 80% of the time, the information that you're taking in and thinking about, you're not actually doing that. What's happening is your brain is taking it in and it's just sorting it and giving you an interpretation of it. And then you act from that. And it seems like it's fact and real and the way the world is. News for you, that's not always true, right? In fact, a lot of the time, that's not true. The stories we've told ourselves or been told through our lives growing up, they've become part of us, and they've become a part that we never interrupt and we never think about and we never question, right? That's the way it is. So one of the things we're going to talk about today is how do you interrupt that? How do you take the rock off? How do you stop putting the little pebbles and crap in your positive experiences, okay? So information comes in as an experience. Most of the time, or a lot of the time, your brain just kind of puts it over into the relative categories. Sometimes things make it all the way up, all the way to the cortex. And the cortex, mostly this area here, is where the human comes from. It's the planning, the sorting, the emotion, the strategy, the things that make us, okay? So that's great. You can get that up there and think about it. That's one of the things we're going to talk about later. But when you get stressed, and I think you know this from experience at a minimum, your brain shuts off. You can't think of the things that you normally can think of. You can be in a meeting and somebody says something and you've been triggered because this is for some reason stressful for you. All of a sudden your brain doesn't work. It's that classic, somebody says something to you and like 2 hours later, you're like, oh, I should have said that to them. That would have been a great comeback. But you were in a stressed out situation and you weren't able to take control of it. And so you weren't able to come up with that snappy comeback, okay? So we want to always have ourselves in a calm or alert state where we can take things in and we can just filter through up to being able to think and do things and understand our story and interrupt and all that. But when we encounter stress, and for some people, stress is an audience. And for some people, stress is being in a room with your boss. For some people, stress is, oh my God, I have to do my sales report or my 360 or whatever. It's different for all of us, okay? When that stress happens, all of it goes in the bottom and our poor little ancient brain goes, ah, we're in danger, right? And then all of a sudden, none of the stuff that we want to get up to the top gets up to the top. We stop thinking, we feel stupid, we come up with all kinds of excuses and reasons and rationales and all of that sort of thing. Here's the real kicker, people. Here's the real kicker. Women are far more sensitive to those stressors, to stress in general, than males. So whenever we feel threatened, so here we are, we're little fishes from the ocean, we've been put into the fish bowl, okay? That's a little stressful, even if we don't realize what's going on. Turn up the heat in the fish bowl, and all of a sudden we go a little bit crazy. Now, most of the time we're really good at keeping our crap together, but we have emotions, you know, we do, it's everybody has emotions, but women have statistically higher emotional intelligence. We have a more physical emotive reaction. And there is nothing worse, it seems, than your lip quivering and your eyes getting teary in a meeting. And I have been to that place where I was like, get me out of here before I lose it in front of people. So there's that part of things going on. So what we're going to talk about now, does that make sense? Can I get a thumbs up? Yes, yes, yes. We kind of know where we're going here a little bit here, a little bit. Okay, so we have these cultural realities that we're in. So how do we take the stories from our past, okay? And I want to be clear right now, I'm not talking about therapeutic things, okay? So in the past, things that are for a counselor, a therapist, things like that, are things that are traumatic and are of a traumatic level that you can't get past without that help, without that therapeutic help, okay? So I just want to be clear about that, because when we talk about the past, we're talking about stories like our hidden fears, but not traumatic, okay? We're talking about our assumptions, our interpretations, our limiting beliefs, right? They all come from somewhere, right? We didn't just come ready-made. I have 2 boys, and believe me, when you shake them, nothing comes off when they're born. Like, there's no instructions at all. It's the Wild West, figure it out yourself, okay? So we have these experiences and we tell ourselves stories about them and we go through life. But now we're up against this imposter syndrome situation, which maybe you don't have it. Maybe you're just interested in the subject. Maybe it comes up some of the time and not all of the time, which is actually more what happens than anything. What do we do? So the first thing that we want to do is we want to create an interruption, okay? So when we're feeling that sort of stress, or we know we're going into a situation that is gonna cause us that sort of stress, like we kind of know, all right? What I want you to do is I want you to stop, S-T-O-P. And this can happen in seconds, okay? You can go on a retreat and do this for days, or you can do this in 30 seconds. You get better at it over time. So you're gonna stop. So the first thing, the S is stillness. Check in on your breath. Check in on your body, okay? Try to find that moment of just, that's all you need. And even that small one breath will bring your parasympathetic response up, the calming response up, and the sympathetic nervous response, which is the cortisol, adrenaline, down. One breath, okay? So you find the stillness, that's S. Then we go to T, take inventory. Check, you know, am I guessing at what this person means? Do I have any data to back this up? Am I just projecting my own fears onto them? Take inventory. Maybe it's that you are like most women that have children and you're sleep deprived. And when you're sleep deprived, guess what? You're already in an agitated state. You are already behind the 8 ball, okay? And COVID has only made it worse, infinitely worse, in fact, for many, many women, as we know. So that's our T. Then O. O stands for opportunities. You're scanning for an opportunity in your environment. It could be like, ask an open-ended question. What did you mean by that? Tell me what you're thinking. I want to understand your concern a little more. Can you talk to me about it? So and it buys you time too. So you can leave, you can breathe, you can go do meditation, you can go for a walk, you can ask a question, you can take control back of the situation. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. So there's going to be opportunities. Opportunity can be reframing it. I'm choosing not to think that that person's facial expression was about me. They've got gas. It's not about me, right? So you can choose that. And then P is pick and proceed. So pick the opportunity you're going to take, pick the path forward, and then take the path forward. Okay? So super simple. Your interruption is, I know I'm getting into stress. I can feel the stress. I'm going to stop, breathe, just even one breath. I'm going to take inventory of the situation. I'm going to look for my opportunities, and then I'm going to pick what I'm going to do, and I'm going to proceed. Okay? What we're trying to do is take back control in an environment or in a situation where the odds were already oftentimes against us when we went into that. Okay? Another thing that the research shows is that women believe in a meritocracy. So they believe, by and large, that good work, productive work, good employees are recognized and rewarded. And at the beginning of careers, when we have a closer contact with our managers and bosses and stuff, when they can see what we're doing and stuff, that can be accurate. It's not always accurate, but it's more accurate than later on, okay? As you move up the ladder, you are not having contact with the people who judge you in the same way or the same amount. And so what you're needing to do by that point in time is make some decisions about how you want the people that make decisions about your job and your career, how you want them to understand you, how you want them to see your work. Think of it this way, it's an umbrella, okay? So everything you do for the people above you, all they see is the umbrella, okay? They look down, they're like, well, shit's not hitting the fan. I guess it's all good, right? Meanwhile, we're underneath the umbrella and we're like, I'm rocking this. I'm amazing. I'm not taking anything to my boss because I'm amazing, right? Problem is, unless you have a really astute and involved boss, chances are they don't know that you are not bringing things to them because you are solving it for yourself. There's pretty much 3 reasons why a boss will go under an umbrella. 1, there's a problem. 2, they've either got lots of time on their hands or they're just a really good boss and they go out and they talk to their employees and their staff and they find out what they're doing and why they're doing it and all that sort of thing. And number 3, the answer that women generally dislike is women have to advocate for themselves, self-promote and self-advocate, which means we have to talk about what we're doing well, what we're contributing. Not, I want to be clear, in an obnoxious way where you're like, hey, I'm the bomb. Guess what I did today, right? But the conversation's like, we really have this challenge and here's how we worked through it, right? Here's the deliverables. We're ahead on this, this, and this. These are the employee reports. We've got this much satisfaction. That's fantastic. So creating awareness around, frankly, your awesomeness is a key piece of this. But generally, women don't like doing that a whole bunch. And there's a lot of reasons they think. And it stems from school. There's culture too, obviously. But in school, girls are, what is it here? Girls are rewarded when, of course, they get good marks and they behave. Boys, on average, get reprimanded 8 times more than girls, right? For being up and down and talking and those sorts of things. But girls get the reward for being quiet and doing well and all of those sorts of things. We get interrupted more. We get laughed at more for our ideas. Our confidence plummets between the age of 10 and the age of 14. Now, I don't know about you, but between 10 and 14, lots happens if you're female, right? And so at a time when you could, in fact, grow into a confident young woman, those opportunities are being taken away from you by some of those structural things where you're not called on as much. You're not asked to take leadership roles. If you do take a leadership role, you're accused of being bossy. There's all kinds of things that happen in that space. So that happens. We're primed to go into an environment, a work, like a post-secondary, and then a work environment. And in that work environment, what happens? We think we're going to be rewarded for doing our jobs well and sitting nicely and getting an A and all of that sort of thing. But who actually gets the attention? You've heard, I'm sure, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. It's the person who says, hey, I'm over here. I did this, pick me, right? And unsurprisingly, the people that are more likely to do that are the men, right? And that goes all the way back to their experiences that they've had in the past. So I read the other day that we have competence and confidence, okay? Women run on the model of competence. So I'm good at my job, that's good. Competence is only table stakes. That's just what you need to get in the door, to get in the game. What makes the difference by mid-management is confidence. I'm sure we've all had the experience of somebody who's super confident. They got no competence. You wonder why the heck they're even there, right? But humans will respond to confidence over competence every single time, men and women. Okay, so we've got these cultural ideas about how a girl or boy should act. We've got these situational factors going on, right? We've got the stories we've told ourselves. And then we have the real world of work, which frankly, we weren't really prepared for because we didn't play it the same way. It's not a game that we played. And you end up with the perfect conditions for imposter syndrome to manifest itself. An interesting little fact that I came across yesterday, 96% of women that end up at the very, very, very top tier, right? So like we're talking the CEO level. And by the way, when I say 96%, I'm talking 96% of the 7% of women that are CEOs. So it's actually not that impressive a number, but 96% of those women played sports all the way through to college or whatever, at least into high school. And there's a correlation, a very strong correlation between playing sports and having leadership capabilities and being able to do the teamwork and the resilience, right? Because in sport, you lose, you win, you play in a team. Sometimes it's not fair, right? The losses aren't about you unless you like egregiously duffed it. It's not about you. And the opposite team is not the enemy, right? It is a game and you're playing a game. So women that have learned to do that within that space tend to do much better in the workplace. So I thought that was super interesting. I want to tell you one other little fact. 43% of women, when they finish their undergraduate degree and they go into the workforce, 43% of women said they want to go to the top. They want to go as far as they can go to the top of whatever pile. 34, so 43% women, 34% of men say that. Yet we end up with 90% men at the top. So clearly women don't get partway through and go, yeah, it's not for me, right? And I know that I'm not saying anything you haven't already figured out, but the research and the data backs this up. And that's why I said at the beginning, you're not alone. This is very, very real. So I also said at the beginning, we're at a point in time where we can start to look at how to transform that. We might be lucky enough to be in the transition generation. I hope we are. That enough of us can move through this space and get far enough to make the changes that this isn't going to be the experience, the 90%, 10%, 7%, whatever, all the different percentages of women that come after us. So I'm going to break right here for questions, comments, feedback, anything. The floor is yours. Erica.
Hi, everything you're saying is just resonating. And I just recently read some research that said that men are more likely to go after jobs that they don't even feel like they're qualified for, and they get them. And it's all about that confidence. They assume that when they get into that role, they'll figure out what they need to do to maintain it and continue to grow. And women won't do that. They'll think that they have to get another degree, get more training, get more experience. They'll be totally qualified and still doubt their ability to go after that job.
That's right. And that's the confidence thing. And confidence comes from being able to stay in a calm state. So not being stressed out, right? Being able to be calm enough to control your reactions and your actions in that time and that space. And more bad news, testosterone is positively associated with confidence. So if you've ever heard of Amy Cuddy and her power poses, like her Wonder Woman and her whatever, right? That's one way to go about it. I've run into women in the bathroom doing that before presentations. I'm like, you go, I know exactly what you're doing. So, but even just being aware that there is an edge that they have just because of the hormones in their body can be enough to have that interruption to go, okay, I know how to be confident. I know how to stay calm. I'm going to leverage that because now I'm aware and now I can choose instead of being like, oh my God, I don't know what happened. So yeah, thank you, Erica, for that. Anybody else have something they want to throw in the pot? Let me see here. Oh, what am I doing? I'm looking for hands. No more hands. Okay. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about what we can do. So we've talked a little bit about that already. And I always use the model of a what, so what, now what. Okay. So we've talked about the details. We've talked about the so what, like with the stats and all of those other things. Now, the now what can we do? So we know we have the STOP acronym to help us start to stop those stories we tell ourselves. We know about the testosterone and we can tell ourselves about, okay, they've got an advantage, but that's not the end of the world. I can absolutely do this. So I'm putting it to you. I have a list here, but I'm not going to go over my list. I want to hear from you. First off, what can we do? And when I say we, I mean both the individual and the collective. And by the way, us all being here in this space, we've already created one of the key conditions for us to move past these stories and the imposter syndrome triggers and things like that. So that's a little hint there. Okay, so what can we do? Individually, collectively? Hit me. We can take more risks. Yes, women are risk averse. Here's the interesting thing though. In all financial measures, leaders and in finance, that the less risk you take, so women want the details, they want to think about it, they want to ask questions, the higher the returns. Yet we reward the risk behavior. If we were looking at it from purely a business case model, there is no reason at all why women shouldn't be at least half of the leadership and should be making the decisions related to risk. Get around the right people, absolutely. Find yourself a dream team. jump into activities like this where you can find like-minded women and people that are allies of women, right? Because this isn't just a female only space. It happens to be, I think, tonight, but you know, we have allies. Find our allies, educate our allies. We can support other women around us. Absolutely. Research shows that women have the tendency to be harder on other women who show confidence that is a masculine confidence, like a ball breaker, like the bitch from the 1980s. If you watched any of those like Sigourney Weaver and whatever shows from the 80s, I know most of you are too young for that, but trust me when I say it was a thing, okay? So when we run into authentic female confidence, we respond well. But if we feel like there's inauthenticity or fakeness or being manly, we react. So do men, incidentally, but we need to be on the same team. It's kind of my thinking here. We can acknowledge each other more. Absolutely. You're in a meeting and somebody's getting credit for something you know another woman at that table was pivotal in. If you've got the airtime, the position, the influence to be able to say, well, actually, no, I'd like to point out that, you know, Sue over here was pivotal in making that happen. So speak up for each other. And in fact, women are received more positively when we bump up other women than when we bump ourselves up. So we got to be on the same team. Otherwise, the numbers don't work. We'll end up with 1 woman out of 10 being in a leadership position till like the end of time, right? Learn from guys. Some of that's true, absolutely. And that comes back to things like the confidence piece, the believing that, you know what, I got 60% of what it takes to do this job. I'll figure the other stuff out, right? And that's actually the research I think you might be talking about, Erica, is that when looking at job applications, like job descriptions, women will not apply unless they have 100% of the qualifications. Men will apply with 60%. So one way that you can take that and flip it is when you don't necessarily have all the 100%, you can go into an interview with the language around, I really look at this as a growth opportunity. You know, I have all of these things and I'm a really quick learner and it's a really great growth opportunity for me and I can really bring my energy and stamina to the team. That reframe, hugely powerful. And they're like, oh, good, growth opportunity. We like that, growth mindset, check, 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 right? What else have we got here? Start telling people around us what we need instead of asking for permission for what we need. Yeah, so female speech is peppered with things like, so it's called gendered speech. So I was wondering if I was thinking this, but it might not be right. You know, I had this idea, but it might not be a good idea, or sorry for my stupid question, any of those sorts of things where from a female perspective, we do that collectively as a way to level the playing field and be inclusive in a female space. It doesn't translate into a male built space yet. Maybe if enough of us get up there, it can go back to being, you know, both being accepted, but we need a critical mass in order for that to occur. So listening to our language choices and working on taking out the extra stuff and saying the thing, right? But here's the other thing. We need to learn to hold the floor. Ever been in a meeting where a guy goes on for 10 minutes and he's got like 5 points and he's, you know, and you think, I got to get in and get out. I got 30 seconds, make my point before I lose them and somebody interrupts me. Right. Or I can't talk for that long. Well, it's a skill. And so it goes back to Jenny's learning from the guys. That's a real thing. Let's see here. What else have we got? I literally tell myself, what would a man do? He would ask for a higher salary, apply for a job, etc. Yes. And on average, men get 33% more on their first salary out of post-secondary. And some interesting, they ask like 68% more for more and for promotions. And in Australia, the information that I got was that women ask as much as men, but men get it 25% of the time more than women. So I'll leave it to you to interpret what's going on there. Let me see. Remind yourself that it never hurts to ask. Absolutely. You can't ask. If you can't ask, you're not going to get most of the time. And it comes back to that meritocracy idea, right? They'll just see my awesomeness. Sadly, that's not always the case. You're actually more likely, if you have a female boss, to have your awesomeness seen. So look around where you're at and who you're with, and maybe make decisions based on that a little bit more. Manjeri, I see your hand. What would you like to say, my dear?
So I had a question. I mean, you made a very good point about, it's a good idea for women to kind of also think about how would I react in terms of if I was a man. Would I ask more? Would I speak up for more? Yep. What I have also seen is whenever women do try to do that, they are, I would say, the same characteristic which is seen as normal in a man can be perceived as something which is a little bit on the aggressive side, a little bit on the bossy side. So I'm just curious to know, like, although we know that that is the right thing to do, how do you navigate that perception?
And that's a perfect example and a great question. The answer is quite simply that we have to do the things that men do, but not in the way that men do them. So think about it like this. Confidence is, honestly, it's a performance, right? Now the performance can come from the inside, like an Oscar award-winning actor, they're winning, hopefully, because they've done this amazing performance that is an authentic mix of who they are and then what the role calls for, right? So that's what we're always trying to do. So some of the things we know make a difference, okay, are your posture, the volume of your voice, your specific language choices, having larger gestures, asking more open-ended questions, having backup ideas and solutions to any sort of pushback that you might get in that situation. Let me see, what else am I missing on the list here? I'm sure I'm missing something right now, but those are some of the sort of honestly performative type things where we take up more space and we give off more of an energetic presence. The interesting thing that they found in research is that even when we act confidently, right? If we are not feeling that confidence on the inside, we haven't worked on it, there's micro expressions that go across our face, a slight shift in our eyes, and just a twitch, anything. And the people in the room may not be even conscious that this happened, but they file it away. We read it as a lack of confidence, and we will always pick confidence over competence. So really working on taking up that space and finding ways to say what needs to be said in a more female acceptable, and that's problematic in and of itself, I know, but finding a way where it is not as aggressive, right? Because men and women will follow women that are authentic leaders, not the ones that come off as men. So you have to find that balance between doing the thing, but doing it in the authentic female way. And it's every person's is different. So that's kind of an answer and kind of not an answer, but that's what both the research and the practice shows at this point in time, Manjeri.
Right. No, that's definitely insightful. What I do here is, working a bit on the aesthetics aspect of it, about, how do you position these asks and then taking it from there. Yep. Sounds
Absolutely.
Good.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a process, right? And you have to reconfigure it for every conversation you have with every individual person. Lovely, right? Paula, we haven't heard from you, and I've been enjoying your glasses this whole session. So what would you like to...
So I guess what a lot of what you're saying has resonated with me. I guess I also wonder why the status quo has to always be the way that business is set up now that seems to favor men. So if women believe in a meritocracy, then why can't, or what do you think is stopping things from moving to more in a direction to be, more fair or something? Like, why can't, if women believe those things, why can't that change?
Because we don't have the power. We are not in the positions that we need to be in to change the conversations, the legislations, the structure, all of those sorts of things. So if women get ahead by acting more like the status quo, then do you think that the women that get to the top are less like the other women? like Margaret Thatcher? Who they just went, well, she's just one of the guys. Well, and she intentionally chose that path, right? She trained for that and went for that. So you're bringing up an interesting point, and I'm thank you for that, because I want to clarify. I am not saying that women need to be men at all. What I think we need to do is we need to beat them at their game. We need to understand their game better than they understand their game, and play it better than them. And that involves finding ways to be authentic, and there are ways to do this, to be ourselves, whatever that means, and still drive our agendas forward in terms of getting to a position where we can change things. It's a complicated thing, and of course it depends on the industry you're in, it depends on the culture that you're in. Some groups are further ahead than other groups are, and that's why the collective piece of it is so important as well, because there will be groups that make progress faster than other groups, right? And we can either go, ha suckers, or we can be part of trying to change that. Is it going to be easy? No. Are we going to be called names? Probably. But I've been called a few names in my life, and I'm still here to tell the story. So just some general thoughts around that. Does that make sense, Paula? Yeah. Okay. Let me just see here. I'm scanning because, of course, you can never see all the people.
Kim had a question. She's been trying.
Okay. Oh, Kim, I saw your hand earlier too. God love you. Go for it.
Okay. Hold on. Let me start my video here. Hold on. There we go. Okay. I think this stuff stirs a lot up for me, especially around the male leadership talk. And I think that one of the biggest gaps that women have, particularly when we work our way to a leadership position, is that we haven't been modeled this before. Exactly. Men haven't modeled for them all the time. And with my position, I got promoted, and I hadn't been a manager before, and I'd only seen male managers, and I immediately got into this headspace that I had to be a certain way as manager. Well, shit, I couldn't be like that. And so I did all the horrible self-talk, the huge imposter syndrome. And I'll tell you quickly what helped. I went to a coach, and she had me reframe it. So she said, I don't like being in the spotlight. And to me, a leader was, you've got to be in the spotlight and everyone's got to follow you. And I'm like, oh God, I can't do that. So she had me do, or what I did is I thought of it instead of that, two things. I have an umbrella, and I'm bringing everyone under my umbrella, and I'm a beacon, and I'm going to carry the beacon with us under the umbrella.
So you can still see it from above the umbrella.
And that shift was so huge for me. So I just wanted to.
That's fabulous. So that's what we're actually talking about when we're talking about the STOP acronym. We're talking about taking a moment to reframe and take back the power in that moment. And you're right. It's one of the most powerful things that we can do, is to look at something and go, I choose now to do this way instead of this other way that I don't think I chose. I think it just kind of happened to me along the way. And you're right. I see your hand there, Jess. I just want to throw one little fact in there for you. Only 24% of the images that we see in the media, here on the radio, any of those things, represent females. So 75% of the time, whether it's movies, TV shows, any of that sort of thing, we're getting a predominantly male perspective. So if you've never seen what it looks like to be a female leader in this industry at that level, this is completely like bushwhacking. Like, I'm going to go out there and I got to make this up. And that's an incredible leap of faith. And it requires an incredible amount of confidence, but it needs also, more than that, a support system, right? And you started off by getting a coach, and you maybe had some other people around you, but getting a supportive group of people around you, not just your friends, because your friends are going to be like, they're assholes. You should do this, you should do that, right? And like, you agree with them, but that's not all that productive, right? So you need people that can step back and give you a little bit different perspective in the whole picture of everything. Thank you for that, Kim. Jess, go for it.
Yeah, so I have gone through a very weird experience. I've been actually practicing a lot of the stuff that everyone has been saying, and it's been really empowering over the last year.
Okay.
So I've been applying for like upper management positions.
Mm-hmm.
And
I feel a butt coming on.
Yeah, and like the staff were really empowering, and I've met some really wonderful people that I worked with and teams. But then my issue was the men who either owned the company or who was like my boss, they started gaslighting me and like say the staff that worked underneath me. And I was trying to do that thing where I was like, oh no, that person did a really good job on that project. They deserve the praise, right? And I was actually fired several times now just because of their ego. So eventually I found out from the staff after I was let go that they didn't like the fact that I was confident, and that it showed that I was more knowledgeable in the job position that they were, and that's why they let me go. And they would make up some sort of excuse in a review, and then they continue to gaslight everyone else in the company, including myself. So how do I deal with that sort of situation?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is some people there's no hope for.
Yeah.
And you're not going to change their fundamental belief system by being an N of one in that environment. And it really comes down in that sort of a hypermasculine situation to a choice about how you want to frame it. If you want to frame it, do you want to be there? Do you have to be there? That sort of thing. So sometimes there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you're doing wrong. You're doing everything you possibly can. And there's just a barrier that you aren't going to be the one to get through. So I was just wanting to share something with you. So imposter syndrome triggers. Ready for this? Here's a list of 6. Discrimination, microaggression, isolation, lack of mentorship, inequitable treatment and access, and gaslighting. So you stuck the landing on that one, Jess. So it's a thing. I know that's maybe not the most helpful answer, but it's a truthful answer. Anybody else? Let's see here. Honest conversations. Amen. Anybody else? I think we're out of time here. And I just want to leave you guys with a quote. This won't apply to everybody, but I think everybody can appreciate this. Came onto my feed just before we went on. Gentle reminder. Of course, it goes away the moment I want to use it, right? So gentle reminder that the 40-hour work week is outdated and was designed with the assumption someone else was going to be cooking, cleaning, and doing household errands. It wasn't designed for you to be doing it all. And if you're having a hard time, you're not a failure. So yeah, thank you, everybody. I'm going to hand it over to Amrita at this point. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Tay. I know we've learned a lot. We do have a networking session if you'd like to stay for it. But before that, I would really like to thank you, Tay. I know all of us are going to take all the things that you've said and hopefully apply it to our lives and work towards a life that is not filled with imposter syndrome and women doubting themselves. I know we'll get there. So we
will.
Yes. So in the meantime, I will put you all into breakout rooms. So feel free to share your LinkedIn in the chat as well. Connect with each other. And
yes, the whole point.
Exactly. So all the women that are here are going through similar things, if not the same. And if you don't have a support group, here's one right here. So share
Absolutely.
your LinkedIn, reach out to each other if you want, take that leap of faith. And in the meantime, let's put you into breakout rooms and you can chat.
And keep in touch with me. Go and hit me up on LinkedIn and let's be friends. So take care, everyone. Bye.